Today, we are honored to host Bonny and Nora Griffiths, the dynamic duo behind Sidekick, a realization consultancy that champions strategic innovation and purpose-driven growth.
But we also really want it to be fun because that's how people engage, how they remember it. So we make it interactive. We make sure that the right people are involved.
Their journey to founding Sidekick remind us of the limitless potential of marrying passion with purpose.
Where our culture exists is maybe not the physical space anymore. Previously, that was the vessel for culture. Branding on the walls, core values, water cooler chats, that was the shared vessel. It's just now the vessel for culture is different, and we need to figure that out in a hybrid place.
Bonny and Nora's expertise illuminates how to navigate these changes with agility and foresight. Welcome back to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, where I'm your guide through the innovative world of small businesses and entrepreneurship. Each episode is a deep dive into the crucial elements that empower our communities and the essential role of supporting local enterprises. In today's session, we are exploring hybrid work misconceptions, the importance of an actionable strategic plan, and the secret to achieving growth by working smarter, not harder. Today, we are honored to host Bonny and Nora Griffiths, the dynamic duo behind Sidekick, a realization consultancy that champions strategic innovation and purpose-driven growth. With backgrounds that span digital insurance launching to rowing at a national level, Bonny and Nora brings a wealth of experience in strategy, growth, and people management. As co-founders, they have redefined what it means to be consultants, offering workshops, programs, and fractional roles to business leaders aiming to realize their grandest objectives. Good morning, Bonny and Nora, and welcome to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you? Well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor to have you both here to delve into your experiences as entrepreneurs and visionaries in the business strategy realm. As we dive into today's conversation with Bonny and Nora, let's pause to reflect on the essence of entrepreneurship and innovation they embody. Their journey to founding Sidekick remind us of the limitless potential of marrying passion with purpose. Let this discussion be a catalyst for reimagining the trajectory of your own business. Your journey from, concept to creation with Sidekick is testament to the power of purposeful leadership and collaborative innovation. We are all eager to explore your expertise and how Sidekick is transforming the consulting industry. I'd like, let's start with the entrepreneurial journey. The path to founding Sidekick is as unique as services you offer. Could you each share a pivotal moment in your entrepreneurial journey that led to the creation of Sidekick?
For sure. A pivotal moment in my journey, I think, brings me back to my previous role at an innovative, disruptive insurance company that was launched in Canada. And I worked there as a chief marketing officer, worked there for 3 years. And after the 3 years, up until the 3 years, we had been building, doing new things, strategizing. And then at that moment, we had launched in market. So that's the moment where I felt that kind of itch again, that I wanted to do something new. And then I started reflecting on my past career and my roles, and realized that in all of them, I had always enjoyed most kind of building and developing teams to set them up for a big change or to realize their dream or their vision. And then once I kind of had that foundation right and the team was ready to just thrive and to run with it, I moved on to the next. So always stayed in role for like 2 or 3 years. So as I was reflecting on that in my previous role, I realized I just wanted to do more of that. So that's kind of when I started to think about like, how can I do more of that at a bigger scale? And I think that's where the first seeds for something like Sidekick were planted to start help other business leaders and entrepreneurs kind of really realize their dreams. Okay. And I love that you called it a journey because I think upon reflection, this has definitely been a journey I've been on since probably I was 3 and didn't realize it. I was that kid that instead of playing in the park or playing house with their friends was playing store and was like trying to create a business of some sort. But I would say my pivotal moment was likely 3 years ago. I had been with an organization for 10 years, loved it, worked with great people, and doing some things that I found like very rewarding, very motivating, while also incredibly challenging of building, creating, leading big transformations, new product launches, creating new departments, new teams, and really loved doing that. And then after being there 10 years, thought it was time for a change and thought to myself, I love doing this here. Maybe there's an opportunity to do it with other companies, like lots of companies at one time. So started to set my sights on the consulting world and was chatting with a friend turned mentor who's also a recruiter. I was like, how do I get in with the big 4 firms? What are some other small, medium size consulting firms helping smaller businesses, small business owners? And he just stopped and said, if what you love most is the building and creating, why don't you build and create that ability for yourself? Why don't you create your own consulting company? And I have to say, there's very few times in my life I've been speechless, and that was one of them. I was like, oh, right. So that mindset shift of, oh, maybe this is something I can do myself. This is my opportunity to do it. And here we are. A few years later, I met Bonnie and met one of our other founders, Mark, and the rest is history.
Yeah, sounds great. How have your diverse backgrounds influenced Sidekick's mission and approach?
I would say, so there are 7 of us that started Sidekick together, and without sounding too cliche, are all unique puzzle pieces to the same puzzle. So we all had very different backgrounds, very different skill sets and areas of expertise, but we had that connective tissue, that greater puzzle that we all fit in together of a shared purpose, the type of professional work and the way we want to give back through our work, the same ways of working and kind of standards we held for ourselves, the things that we all love to do of that exploring, being creative, pushing the boundaries. So almost like, again, another consulting cliche thing of a Venn diagram of that shared purpose and what we wanted to be able to create through our work and how we wanted to do it connected us, while each of us have very different professional and personal backgrounds with a depth of experience in that way. So when you work with one of us, you're kind of working with all of us at the same time.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories. Your stories really highlight the importance of leveraging personal experiences and passions to drive business innovation and success. Now, moving on, let's discuss about the hybrid work misconceptions. Hybrid work models are becoming the norm, right? Yet misconceptions persist. What are some common misconceptions about hybrid work that leaders should rethink?
Really great question. And I would say the first misconception is the word hybrid. I think it's the maybe controversial statement here. I think it's the wrong word to be focusing on. And especially a lot of small business owners, that might not be their reality. But when, the conversation becomes more focused on hybrid policies and in-office days, and do we provide lunch? Do we provide a travel stipend? Are we doing big fun things? What does our office look like? Like when the conversation is more focused on that element of hybrid. Not that that's wrong, and they definitely have a place, but I would say that's the first misconception is a lot of leaders we've worked with on it solving this exactly are focusing on the hybrid first, when I feel the question we should be asking ourselves is really about organizational culture. So something that for years and years and years, every organization and every leader focuses on is what is that culture that is required of our organization to really thrive, really click as a group of individuals for a greater good of the organization. And it's less about the hybrid element because that's just a new factor to consider. Where our culture exists is maybe not the physical space anymore. Previously, that was the vessel for culture, branding on the walls, core values, water cooler chats. That was the shared vessel. It's just now the vessel for culture is different, and we need to figure that out in a hybrid place. So I would say that's probably the biggest misconception is don't focus on the hybrid. That's a component. Still focus on your culture.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this. Before moving on to the another question, like I just wanted to understand, and this is a question for my listeners as well, like how Sidekick empowers different businesses from different industry. Like what are the core services Sidekick provides to the businesses?
Hmm. Yeah, so we provide services in what we call 3 pillars, so strategy, people, and growth. And we do that all through like hands-on services, workshops, fractional roles, building out project plans or plans on a page, and providing you the tools and resources to really implement that.
Thank you so much for sharing this information. So, following on our hybrid work topic, like how does Sidekick assist organizations in holistically, like redefining for hybrid work environment?
Yeah, great question. And I think Nora alluded to it before. Where it starts for us is always to define the right problem we're solving. So when clients come to us with like, we need more people to come back into the office, or we want to become a hybrid workplace, we kind of slow them down and take a step back and try to figure out what it really is that is underlying this surface problem. So what's really the root cause of this problem? And that brings us often to kind of exploring the current employee experience, diving into things like, do they feel aligned with the purpose and values of the organization? Do they feel in control and a certain level of flexibility within their roles? Is role clarity something that really exists in the organization? And we've come to use a framework that was developed by McKinsey. It's the 9 elements to get it right. And that framework does a really good job in kind of mapping out the different components that contribute to this employee experience. And it allows us to peel down kind of those multiple layers and get to the real root cause. And then that is kind of where we define our problem statement and start working with the client to solve their actual problem.
Okay. I believe, like redefining hybrid work through your lenses, like, it offers a fresh perspective on fostering productive and happy workplaces. Now let's discuss, like the impact of strategic planning, an actionable strategic plan is a cornerstone of successful business management. How do you ensure, like, that your strategic plans remain actionable and don't just end up on a shelf?
Yeah, it's another good one. What a waste of time when a strategic plan ends up on a shelf, right? It's one of the things that we really do not want to see, right? So we plan for actionable plans, and where that starts is in how we facilitate the process. So we borrow from this concept that's called inclusive design thinking, where we do not only work for our client, but with our clients. So we make sure that we work with all the people that ultimately are responsible for implementing the plan. So we often start with like an extensive discovery phase where we do desk research and look into existing materials, but we also always do interviews and focus groups with people across the organization just to kind of get a gauge of where they are and what everyone thinks
From top to
is
bottom.
important. Top to bottom.
Inside, outside.
Inside, outside. Sometimes we even do focus groups with clients too to learn about like how they perceive the organization. And then we use all of that input to facilitate sometimes a half day, sometimes a multi-day interactive planning session, again, with the group that is responsible for executing upon the plan. And I always need to chuckle upon this a little bit because there was a participant the other day who at the end of the session said, like, I never thought that strategic planning could actually be fun. And that's something that we really...
It's a serious word to
It's hard work. But we also really want it to be fun because kind of that's how people engage, how they remember it. So we make it interactive. We make sure that the right people are involved. And then the second thing is also we try to summarize the whole plan on a page. That makes it easy to communicate, easy to share, easy to reference. And then with that plan on a page, that's also not where it stops for us. And it's great that we have a plan, but we want it to be something that people leverage on a day-to-day basis. So after the development of the plan, we start looking into like what are some tools and resources that we can equip these leaders with to really execute this well in the next year or 3 years or whatever the plan is. And then you can think of like processes, scorecards, meeting cadences. You would be surprised how many organizations do not really have a system or a rhythm to continuously talk about performance with each other. So those are the three things. I think involving the right people, plan on a page, and then tools and resources to implement.
And making it fun and easy to do.
Fun and easy. Yeah.
Rule number one.
Yeah. Can you share an example, like where actionable plan significantly transform a client's business?
Yeah.
A few come to mind, and maybe I'll start by saying, we describe the folks that we work with as entrepreneurial minds. So the typical characteristics of what many would describe as an entrepreneur: creative, trailblazing, pushing boundaries. A lot of small business owners embrace those. And while those characteristics may be held by traditional entrepreneurs, startup founders starting their own business, we also see it held by intrapreneurs. So individuals within larger organizations that are the one responsible for initiating a change or spearheading something. And so maybe a couple of examples on both sides of those. That one is we worked with an organization that had been around for a long time, and due to some different external factors completely out of your control, which those are always our favorite things, not in our control, right? And their funding model completely changed, and a source of funding that they had relied upon for years and years and years. And without realizing it, their entire business model, their ways of working, their roles, their internal competencies and skill sets had really become dependent on that type of funding. And they were pretty much told, you have 18 months left of this funding and you need to find something else. So they brought us in and we did a strategic plan, and hopefully they would say it was fun, session to really think about what are some different business models, what are some different service models, what are some different revenue models, and not just looking at externally, what are the opportunities that are presenting itself, how are things shifting, what are some of the unmet client needs, but looking internally of now shifting this mindset of not this funding we've been able to rely on, we now need to go find it ourselves. Their internal operations change. So we really did a strategic plan with an operational plan that was probably about a year ago. So too soon to tell, but we're continuing to work with them on other initiatives, and they're off to the races. And I think they're always looking to optimize it. Factors are completely out of their control and always changing. So that every time we talk with them, it's really, they're trying to build on it and not just doing what we said a year ago, but what's right for right now in the future. So I'd say that's like a good example of where we've all been in that shoe as business owners, of something out of your control just hits you and you're like, now what? So I think that's a good example. And
okay, I believe, the transformational power of well-executed strategic plan you have just outlined is truly remarkable. Bonny and Nora's expertise illuminates how to navigate these changes with agility and foresight. Consider the structure of your own organization. Are you prepared to adapt and thrive in a hybrid work environment? Let's challenge ourselves to think beyond the conventional, embracing holistic strategies for growth. Moving on, let's discuss growth by working smarter. Achieving growth without overextending is a delicate balance. What strategies do you recommend for organizations looking to grow by working smarter rather than harder?
Yeah, that's a great concept to kind of establish growth by working smarter, right? And for us, again, the approach is very much rooted in that inclusive design thinking, where the key is to get the right people together, the collective brain power, experience, and skill sets to really bring that focus to what we're doing in growth. What it often ultimately comes down to, though, is having the right product market fit. So there is like the product side of it and the market side of it. So depending on the organization, we lean a little bit more towards one side or the other. But on the market side, it's kind of really understanding your audience who needs your product, right? And understanding who they are, how they behave, what they need, and then tailoring and customizing everything that you do in your, whether it's outreach or BD efforts or marketing communications, tailoring everything really towards that audience. Not try to be everything to everyone, but really focus in on that one audience that needs your product most. And then the other side of it is the product side of it, where what we see a lot is people overly focus on the solution. Whereas, I don't know who said it, but you should be obsessing over the problem, not the solution, right? So truly understanding the problem that your audience has might actually result in having to redesign or design a product or a service. So that's the other side of it that we do, like bringing the right people together to really develop that right solution for the problem that already exists in the market. And by getting that product market fit right, you'll find that you'll have to put way less effort in your BD and sales, right? It almost organically kind of just accelerates.
Thank you so much for sharing this information. And how does this approach change the traditional mindset around work and productivity?
Yeah, we talk about this all the time, that usually when we find when folks think about growth, it just naturally goes to sales, which is a 4-letter word for a lot of people, and it makes them incredibly uncomfortable, the idea of selling something. Where, as shifting mindsets happen, and as Bonnie was saying, we see it around your productivity and how your work is set up as an organization is everybody plays a role in growth, or everybody should play a role in growth. And it's just not the sales team to go hit their sales targets, just not the marketing team to go, generate the buzz online. It's really about how does each role, each person, each function contribute to the growth of your organization. Accounting team, accounts receivable, accounts payable, keep that nice and tight, and that will help us with our cash flow so we can fund some of this growth. To technical teams, software developers, engineers, creating the best client experience so that it is an easier lift for the marketing and sales team and has just that natural piece. So I would say that's the biggest shift, is when we have a lot of small business leaders that come to us and say, we need to grow. We're not growing fast enough. We need more money. And they focus on the sales and the marketing piece first, not the client, not the product problem, not the solution. And then that ecosystem or organizational approach of what role does every single person play in bringing this to life.
Yeah, most of the businesses, like their focus is on getting, like revenue first.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning into the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. We are going to take a quick break.
You dreamt big. You made the leap. You and your "we're not stopping at small" business. Doesn't matter you've never done it before. You unlock those problems. You adapt to change. You learn to evolve. You're pioneers in challenging times, finding your own frontiers. Wherever you e-commerce, UPS is with you. So nothing is going to hold you back.
Nope.
Constant Contact delivers the marketing tools your small business needs to keep up, excel, and grow. Constant Contact, helping the small stand tall.
Welcome back to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast. Let's continue our journey into the inspiring small business world, full of innovation and passion. And Bonnie, you just mentioned, like the design thinking. Can you, in simple terms, define what is design thinking for our listeners?
Yeah, so design thinking originally kind of stemmed from the product development or like software development space, right? So what it really comes down to for me is that initial phase of empathizing with your audiences, and based on those insights. So that's kind of where the inclusive also comes in. It's not just one audience; it's like making it accessible for everyone and taking in all the voices that matter, and then throughout the process, ensuring that it's an iterative process. So you kind of start testing your hypothesis that you get from your insights with your audience, start learning, maybe build a prototype and learn on the job, and then kind of continuously elevate and iterate based on that until you feel you got it right.
Thank you so much for helping us in understanding, like more clearly about design thinking. I believe, your insights into smart growth strategies provide a much needed paradigm shift for today's businesses. Now, let's discuss the role of sidekick. Interesting topic for you as well. Having a sidekick by your side can redefine business consulting. What does it mean to have a sidekick, and how are you different from other consultants?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things that we've been kind of sharing around growing, changing, leading transformation, especially as either a business owner, a business leader, an entrepreneur, can be a lot. It can be tiring. It can feel lonely. And in many cases, small business owners, like their livelihood is so connected to it. And having been in that position before, sometimes you just need to phone a friend. You need to phone a thinking buddy, somebody you can call and troubleshoot something or bounce some ideas off of. And I would say that was kind of the initial origin, right, of being that collaborator, that thinking partner, somebody that you can pick up the phone and work through something. And that, is true to how we've evolved today, that every single person that we work with, we are that partner. We like to be curious. We like to push people to think differently while also seeking to understand. We're intentional every step of the way because we've likely been in your position or something like that before to really help you along the way and ultimately help these entrepreneurs and business leaders achieve their dreams. So that I think is what makes Sidekick unique, is going back to that. It can be a very lonely position and a very tiring, but also rewarding one. And you just need that thinking partner to call. And really, Sidekick today as our organization, we like to say we're in the realization business for that reason. We work with leaders to help them realize their goals, realize their business dreams. And that could be as simple as picking up a phone and having somebody to bounce some ideas off of, or greater projects of this is my problem, help me solve it in whatever capacity that looks like. So yes, while, traditional consulting engagements do come from time to time, I really think it's in the roll up our sleeves and we're right there with you and equally invested in your success.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, and maybe if I can just add a small thing to that, what we also see is that entrepreneurs, small business owners, business leaders within larger organizations, they often get up, they're so busy, they get caught up in the day-to-day, right? Whereas they have this enormous change agenda or these big goals that they also still want to achieve. And that's kind of where we also step in to just kind of create that momentum to really get traction, to get them going, because otherwise it might take them years to kind of even get started, right?
Right. I think the Sidekick name is very unique and it has a deep meaning. Do you mind sharing how did you came out with this name?
Yeah, it was a fun, probably afternoon, putting ourselves in a room, but it came from exactly what I was sharing, right? That we had some early success with some initial clients and folks we were working with before we are officially Sidekick yet. And like Bonnie said, the product market fit, these relationships kind of just naturally formed. And we went what makes these different? What makes these unique? Why do they keep calling us? Why do they want to keep working with us? What kind of our engagements? So we had a fun activity of brainstorming famous duos, dynamic duos. And we thought of Batman and Robin and all of these ones. And we were going around and around. And then someone just said, why not just Sidekick? What we're talking about is being someone's sidekick. When they've got a lot going on, we're just there to help them kind of remove barriers and be successful.
Yeah, people had been referencing or referring to us as their thinking partner.
And who do you each want as your personal sidekick and why?
And I can't say Bonnie.
Well, that's actually a really good point, because I do feel that within our team, we're all each other's sidekicks, right? I hugely benefit from having some people around that complement my skill sets, right? And that's usually people that are very detail-oriented, structured, planned, which is all the things that I'm not, right? So that's kind of within the team. We all are each other's sidekicks. But if I were to think a little bigger, I would love to have someone by the likes of Simon Sinek as my sidekick, just because I think he would keep me like really straight and strict on following my purpose, truly kind of pursuing my goals, living my values, and ensuring that I offer the best value to the world that I have to offer, right? So, yeah, that would be mine.
Being a former athlete and competitive to my core, I think I would choose Serena Williams. I like really admire what she's done professional or like through tennis. And I think of like her and her sister were probably each other's sidekicks growing up through this. And then what she's done in more of a business sense and giving back to her community and the powerhouse that she and her husband Alexis Ohanian have kind of created and investing in minority-owned organizations, I think is pretty powerful. I'd love to call her up and she can give me some tennis lessons too, maybe.
I believe, that the concept of a sidekick you have introduced us today to emphasize the power of, like partnership and support in achieving business objectives. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Dear listeners, this conversation reminds us that efficiency isn't just about the number of hours of work, but the clarity of focus and the momentum behind our actions. Reflect on your current workflows and strategies. Inspired by Bonny and Nora's journey with Sidekick, let's redefine success by prioritizing smart growth and purposeful action. Now, as we near the end of our discussion, Bonny and Nora, could you share a piece of advice for our listeners, who are navigating the challenges of entrepreneurship and seeking to innovate within their businesses?
Yeah, for sure. The thing that comes to my mind is something I heard or learned about recently is for innovative leaders that they need to be disagreeable. So they come out with these big ideas and they're often initially being misunderstood. People think they are insane. It's unthinkable what they're trying to do. So you can find yourself in a very lonely place and you'll have self-doubt and feel misunderstood. And I think it's good to realize that is part of the process, and it serves a bigger purpose. And it's good to kind of develop some level of comfort with that uncomfortableness. And what might also help is to just seek someone in your environment that you think does understand you, much like a sidekick, really, who can remind you from time to time that it is part of this process, that you are exactly where you need to be, and that it's good to sometimes be misunderstood.
Kind of along the same lines, like the mindset of running your own business or being a senior leader with lots of accountabilities. There's no end of things to focus on, no end of problems to solve. And I can see, and having been there, some days you're like, what do I focus on next, right? And my kind of advice or my personal mantra is always starting just one thing. Just pick one thing, right? Because they're all interconnected. And it kind of goes back to what Bonny was saying of like, what problem are you trying to solve? And if you can't articulate it, ask yourself why, until you can't ask yourself it anymore. And just start with that one thing and then move on to the next. And usually you'll find a bunch of things will resolve themselves and the problems will go away. So just focus on one thing and start there.
Okay. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I think, thank you for having us.
No worries. It was a great pleasure hosting both of you today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and experiences with our listeners.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Today's episode delves into the transformative journey of entrepreneurship with Bonny Van Rest and Nora Griffiths, co-founders of Sidekick. They explore the nuances of hybrid work, the power of actionable strategic planning, and the secrets to fostering organizational growth by prioritizing efficiency over sheer effort. We would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to our partners: exclusive banking partner RBC, exclusive shipping partner UPS, exclusive accounting software partner Xero, exclusive email partner Constant Contact, and our exclusive hospitality partner IHG Hotels and Resorts for their unwavering support. To our listeners, thank you for joining us. Your commitment to growth, innovation, and community support fuels the spirit of entrepreneurship. Don't forget to subscribe to Canadian SME Small Business Magazine at canadiansme.ca for more insights and strategies.